Supervision Simplified. I'm Dr. Amy Parks, and I'm so excited to have my really super fabulous close friend, Debi Frankle, here today to talk about supervision, all things supervision, as we always do, but more specifically about her love of group supervision and some of the work she's been doing lately around that. Welcome, Debi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I love your podcast.
Oh, you're so terrific.
Really
Thank you. Thank you. We hope more people will love it too. We always encourage people to share it, and especially with their supervisees or future supervisors as well, so that they can help us join this movement to make supervision more approachable and practical and keep people doing it so that we can raise the bar. But in the meantime, let's talk about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Debi.
So, I've been a therapist for 1,000,000 years.
Join the dinosaur age like me. Yeah, I get it.
Let me see, 32, something like that. And actually this year I was licensed for 30 years.
Whew.
Yeah.
Fun, huh?
And
you've seen a few things.
Yeah, I've seen a few things. And my husband is also a therapist that you know. And so Mark and I met in a psych hospital. Sometimes I like to say, yes, I met my husband in a locked psych unit. We both had keys, and we both still work the same type of hours. I tend to see clients early in the morning. He tends to see clients starting around 12 or 1. I work the day shift. He worked the evening shift in the hospital. So
that's so great.
It's really, but it's really, really great for I've been a supervisor for, I don't even know how long.
And you're bringing that 32 years of clinical experience in your day-to-day, not only in your work, but in this supervision work, which is absolutely insanely valuable. So incredibly valuable.
What's really cool is because Mark is also a supervisor. And so
all right, we're going to get him on next. Tell him after he's barbecued the ribs, we'll get him in a couple weeks. Because we don't get very many men. I mean, the truth of it is in our field, not to interrupt your flow, but in the field, there aren't that many men. And we need to elevate Mark and really have him talk to men out there who are considering the profession and debunk that myth that it's not, cool or whatever it is. Anyway, go on. So go on.
Exactly. So, well, it's really nice because in supervision, we'll kind of alternate of, wait a minute, hold on, let's bring Mark in. I think that he's got a different perspective. And sometimes he really does. And I'm like, wow, I hadn't even thought about that.
Love that.
That's really great. Yeah. So that's been really, really good. So, and I became a supervisor. I became a supervisor kind of by pressure when I was working at the hospital. We had an intern program, and there was kind of a mutiny that they didn't want the supervisor that they had before. And so the head of the hospital had asked me, could you please just take this over? And I love that. I was a special ed teacher in my first career. And I love being able to pass along information and to be able to support. I had an awesome supervisor when I was at the hospital. And I worked at that hospital for 15 years overall. But first few years I had supervision, she was just really exceptional. And we all knew it in our department. We were all like, this is really, really rare. Yeah.
What do you think makes a rare, I know this is kind of a little bit off topic, but not necessarily. What do you think makes a really rare, exceptional supervisor? Because, I was having a conversation recently with some folks and they were saying, we're not necessarily on board with joining the CSD, the Clinical Supervision Directory, because we don't need more supervisees. Or a couple of them were like, we're afraid to take on supervisees. They supervise in their own practice. So they're not afraid of the role. They're afraid of the liability. But they need the community. And so anyway, that's again, another conversation. But what do you think if we're going to encourage people to move into this role, maybe that are similarly on the fence, like I'm afraid or I don't want to do this, like how can they self-identify? Like what makes an exceptional supervisor like to you?
You know, I know for me, for the supervisor that I had, her name is Pat Curiali. Gosh, she was just amazing. Is that she really
Shout out
cared?
Pat, hopefully you're out there somewhere.
Is that she really really cared. I all of us. I would get a call in the morning on a Monday, and I would have had a whole onslaught of admissions over the weekend. And she'd be like, okay, look, you know what? I'm going to be there. I just want to let you know that here I can help you. This is how I can help you. And she actually would. And so that follow up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and thank you for what you're doing. And, I really appreciate this or, whatever it is that I was doing or not doing. And she would call us out, but it was always with respect. It was always not with shaming at all. It was usually, hey, look, I need to talk to you afterwards about whatever it is that I had messed up on or
Mm-hmm.
forgot. Or
Mm-hmm.
in fact, actually, I remember there was something with somebody else at the hospital who was really just being an absolute jerk, and so she had to tell me uh, to tell me, hey, look, do this next time. And I'm like, I did do that. Like, yes, I
Uh-huh.
understand. And, and so professional. And as we're walking down the hallway later on, she said, don't you just wish sometimes that people would just, something like that a tennis ball would fly in their mouth or something. And I was like, oh my God, which was her way of saying, I get it.
Validating that you are
without
struggling and
without
frustrated.
going into hell with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and
That's strong. That takes a strong person to not move into the like petty,
oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
piece of
Yeah.
things, which, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know, my philosophy in supervising is we do actually almost all of my supervision is group supervision.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
and I have 5 supervisees. And this is just an awesome, incredible group that I have. It's just every single one of them is amazing. And I start supervision every week with how's your heart and soul. And so we do a personal check-in, and sometimes that takes 20 minutes, okay, of the 2 hours that we have, and it's worth it because you can't go into therapy to sessions when you're off and or don't feel like you have the support. And so we have the support that everyone in this group gives to each other is really inspiring. It's the reason why I love being a supervisor is
Yeah.
because I get to see people like get it. Now um, I also teach over at Pepperdine,
Right. You're in
and
California, just so our listeners know, you're in California. And just a reminder, are the 5 people in your supervision group, are they your associates or are they outside? And they're your associates because they're your
so they're my
supervisees.
associates
And then
here
they
at
also work for you in your practice. That's required in California.
right,
Correct?
right,
Yes. Okay.
right,
So
yeah.
you can have 3, correct? And then I would assume that your husband has 3 or something like that.
No, we can
Or you
have
can have 5. Can you have
6,
6? Okay.
6.
You can have 6
Um,
associates in private practice
yeah,
per person.
per person.
Excellent. For some reason, I thought it was 3. Excellent. 6 is a lot. That's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so they're amazing. So
So
when
teaching
I
at
teach
Pepperdine. Mm-hmm.
when I
Pepperdine.
teach over at Pepperdine in practicum class, which is just my favorite
Yes,
classes
me
that
too.
they're just starting to go out in the field and start practicing therapy. And but I always give them a heads up the first week. I'll say, so unbeknownst to perhaps some of you, you've signed up for a practicum class, but you've also signed up for a grief class as well, because my whole entire orientation is grief informed. grief and trauma informed. And so I can't teach this without also teaching you a whole bunch of stuff about grief and
you've got to bring that lens. Absolutely.
It. Yeah. And that's that's really interesting, because in our group here with my 5 supervisees, it's really interesting of how aware that they are, that all, the orientation that I come from is grief. I've had, when Mark and I are on vacation, we'll always substitute with different supervisors, and they're from completely different orientations. And so the first couple of times we come back and they're like, wow, we knew a whole lot more about grief than the other supervisor, or that it was really cool, or that it was really, really cool to be able to get such a different perspective of, somebody else that came in who really focused on parenting. And like I said, different points of view. We've had, let me see, I've had somebody, who do we have? We had Ariel, is an art therapist. Debbie Cohen, also, who used to work for us years and years and years ago, who's brain spotting and trauma and addiction, and is one of the most creative people I have ever met. And so it's really fun to do that.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like having guest supervisors coming into your group. I think that that's fun, kind of like teaching. And that's really, I think that I agree with you 1,000%. The reason why I love supervision and could easily be just professional supervisor, but I think you have to still stay in the work. So you can't, like I used to, when I was in high school, when I was after college, not in high school, after college, I rowed crew, and I didn't row. I was the coxswain. But I always said, like, you have to, as the coxswain, you have to train with your crew. Like, your crew expects you to be able to do what they can do, even if you're not as tall as they are, or necessarily as strong as they are, or, like, you still have to be able to work out with them. So I would train with the crew. And I think that's the same sort of mentality I bring to this. Like, I have to still be in the work. I might not see as many people as you do. I might not be seeing all the same people or using the same modalities. I have a different way of doing this, but I'm still in the work. I think that's really important. I think it's interesting to look at people who have,
you're absolutely right,
thinking. So it sounds like because they're your associates, of course, you're still in the work and you're doing that. But I do know people who have I'm not really seeing clients, but I still do supervision. It's interesting. I mean, I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I just a comment. And so, but to have the guests come in gives you the opportunity to sort of step out of, you've heard my perspective for a long time. Now here's this, art person, developmental person, psychodynamic person, whatever it might be. Yeah, that's cool. And you can't do that in individual.
No,
right.
No, it's not the same. I've had people who aren't supervisors who come in with me there, to do, somebody came in, oh my gosh, and did a whole hour on working with high conflict families.
Oh, excellent.
That she does voluntarily. I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Was
that Nicole? Oh, no, Nicole doesn't do that on voluntary, does she?
Yeah, right. But
nor should she, but anyway.
Right. But, that was really, really helpful. We had somebody else, Amaret Kaufman.
Yeah.
And had her do a whole training, for us on ADHD.
Excellent.
And Wendy Hecht, who rents space for me, who is just an absolute goddess when it comes to guided imagery. And so she came in and did a whole guided imagery. So
I love this. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Here's this other project that we've been doing. I'm really, really excited about it. And I'm so excited to be able to tell you about it. Is that, I have each of my associates do a presentation for us. And I do it for a few reasons. Is I really want to be able to get them, more confident in being able to do a webinar or be able to go out and speak at a school or wherever. And so I told them, I want you to do a presentation on something that's related to grief. And, I'm a grief nerd, so everything's related to grief. but that they're interested in, because I want them to have some skin in the game. And so we had one of my associates, Jennifer. Jennifer's about to take her licensing test probably next month. I'm really, really excited for her. And she did one on suicide loss. She called it Ripples of Loss, and it was just amazing. It was such a great. It was a great presentation. I have them do, if you want to do, Google, if you want to do slides, I have a big monitor here at the office, and so she did one on, there was a study done years ago, which is completely wrong. Uh, um, the number of people who are affected by suicide is 6. So wrong.
Wow.
And so it's actually,
that has to be bizarrely
there's a much more accurate study that's 135 people that are affected by
so
one
if you
person.
kind of look at like Grothendiener's models, like your mesosphere, like your microsphere, your mesosphere, like that's the ripple out effect. I love that. Yeah.
She did such an exceptional job of mapping that out, of taking one case and one example to illustrate that. So we then put that into a webinar. Actually sent the slides over to my virtual assistant, Maddie. Maddie is just a genius. And so I am using another platform other than slides. I use a platform, Articulate Rise. And so she put it all into this platform, which was awesome. And so we did a webinar on that. And that we've had, I don't know, more than about almost 100 views on that, and therapists, contacting me saying, wow, that was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And where did you put this? Did you put this on a YouTube channel, or did you put this on your website, or how did you share this?
I'm trying to remember what I knew I was going to talk about this.
Let's talk about this offline. I have so many ideas about how you could do what you could do with this.
Right. And it's on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
But I made a note to myself, wait a minute, we got to put that on in a section on the website.
Amy and I are going to talk, you're right. Yeah. Amy and I are talking offline outside the podcast about what to do with this, because I have so many ideas for you. And I want to know more about Articulate Rise in a future conversation. Yes. But there's so many things that you can do that can also be beneficial to that supervisee. So it's not like she's doing work for free, or she's doing work that's just not really getting her anywhere. That is improving her speaking. That is getting her speaking opportunities. That is getting her known. And that is absolutely essential. And I hope that my staff is listening to this episode, because they absolutely need to do the same thing. And it's scary at first. I totally get that. The number one fear is public speaking of all humanity.
Absolutely.
And so to do it for 5 people, and then to do it in a webinar format, it's a lot more gradual to getting.
Well, wait till I tell you about the next person.
Okay, go.
So the next person, Rose Constantino's Cruz, she did hers on the Day of the Dead, on Dia de los Muertos. And so you'll see, if you're watching this podcast on a video,
YouTube,
is that we started from her webinar. So she did a webinar on Day of the Dead, and explaining all of it. And I have to say, we were all sitting here going, wow, oh wait, I didn't even know that.
Sure.
So all this information, I was like, wow, I had no idea that the 2 days of Day of the Dead should be Days of the Dead. And that November 1st and November 2nd. And so there's a whole history to it. November 1st is supposed to be in honor of somebody who was a child or a baby who died.
Okay.
And honoring an adult who died is on November 2nd. So those are just 2 details that there was so much that I didn't know. So what we did is we decided to so we turned that into a webinar. And by the way, when I do the webinars with my associates, I'm literally sitting like right next to them. So we do it here in my office. You can see me. I'm kind of like over here, right on the edge of the
Encouraging
screen.
them. Sure. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. And talking them through it. And just again, that sense of, I really want them to know that they're supported. So that turned into doing, we have a whole page on our website, calabasascounseling.com, and then click on Day of the Dead. And so we've been inviting the community of, if you would like to send in a picture online and a story, then we'd be happy to feature that on there. And so yeah, we have a friend, an altar here that we just started. I just started collecting stuff, and so then we have the real altars in the waiting room, and this suite, and then I have another suite for my interns next door. And so we've been inviting one of my other interns, Jennifer, is doing projects with her clients, adults and kids, of doing a mini altar in a shoebox.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's been really, really cool. Let's see, Todd did his on psychedelics related to grief.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't done a webinar on that one yet.
That's
Lydia's
really amazing. That's fantastic.
hers on spirituality, I think actually next week. And Katie hasn't figured out what she wants to do yet. Yeah. So it's been awesome to see that. So yeah, so that's that project.
Yeah, I love this idea of having your supervisees do this reteaching, because these are the nuances of their learning that they are able to sort of draw out in a way that gives them not only more background and information and research and discovery about that particular thing that they're presenting on, but then these skills, these presentation skills, and in a very approachable way. They're not standing in an auditorium in front of 10, 100 people or whatever. They're, you're with them, or even if you're in another room and they're over here and you're doing it by video, you can still be on the video with them as they're doing the recording. But I love that. And I know that we know clinicians who, help their associates monetize those kinds of things. And so there are certainly ways to expand on that. I love that. That's really fantastic. And I would love to see too, grief programs across the country and universities be able to draw from these kinds of training opportunities that are just so terrific. It sounds like you're going to be just an absolute encyclopedia of information. It's going to be really terrific. So I want to ask you one question, and then I want to pivot to something else that I think is really, I know about you as a clinician and a supervisor.
Amy, can I add one more thing?
Yes, please. Please do.
Okay,
yes.
So here's this new idea that we just started. We are in a building full of therapists. We've been here for 30 years and half filled with therapists, and at least. And so one of the therapists who just is on the other side of just down the hallway, she and I figured out we are doing conjoint supervision, just once a month. And she has one associate. And so it's Michelle and Monica, and then myself and our 5 associates. And so we did one last month, we did it in our place. This month, we actually went down and got to visit her office down the hallway. And so that was really, really fun. Michelle was like, she said that really rejuvenated, especially because she has one associate.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was just really, really fun.
Yeah, I think supervising, I think any time you can supervise with a colleague, or anytime, you can do it with you can do a soup on soup, or, like any time you can do that kind of work in community, I think is so incredible. And, a huge focus of the CSD, the Clinical Supervision Directory, over the next year, from now until next year, is, or till next October, is to really focus on this supervision community. You being able to reach out to Michelle and say, hey, I'm a supervisor. I'm just down the hall. Her name is Michelle, right? The gal that you're just talking about. So you should be reaching out to Michelle and saying, hey, I'm a supervisor too. We have this group. Let's, get together. And hey, by the way, if you have any, time and you want to do some supervision consultation or, connection, let's do that. Because again, I so believe in this high tide that raises all ships. The more we are saying supervision needs to be done in community, supervisors need to have a community, and they need to be elevated to the level that speaks to how critical their role is, not only in the initial first stages of development of a clinician, but in the long-term, ongoing 30-year journey of this work. I mean, it just blows my mind that, between you and I, we have 60 years of work between us. We're so grandmas, but between 60 years of work experience, and it would not shock me to have a day where I have to call you because I'm clueless about how to do something. It wouldn't even occur to me to be at all concerned, to be like, I don't even know what to do about this. I've got to call Debi. Or I don't know what to do about this. I've got to call someone else. And to have someone just down the hall, or to have someone you can just click and say, I need to be, or just know next Wednesday I'm going to have my group and I'm going to be able to meet with them. I think that's so great.
That's really helpful for me.
Yeah. That's a big deal. Well, I love, you guys are so innovative and so creative, and group is so fun. I wanted to know my first question before we pivot is, I want to know how your supervisees, how your associates handled the challenge of doing this webinar. Were they all in? Were they freaked out? Did they?
No. They were totally up for it. And what I did is I didn't talk to them about putting it into a webinar first.
Right.
I just talked to them about, all we're going to do is I want you to present to us in our small little group of 5, 6, myself, and Mark came in for a couple of them, 7. We're just going to practice. And so, that's why I also wanted them to pick the topic rather than me picking the topic for them. And so I think that made a really big difference of them having buy-in, that they wanted to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, and so their first presentation, they had slides and all of that still too. They were very, very, very prepared. I love that. I love that you didn't give them more than they needed to have at the moment in terms of your vision for it. I tend to sort of blurt it all out, and I overwhelm people with I have a big idea and they're like, I can't get there with you. That is a marathon and I have not even started running. Yeah. I've realized that about myself only probably in the past year, that are a lot of ideas where I can run the marathon, and there's a lot of people who are like, wait, I'm still a walker. I can't, I'm not there yet. And that's totally cool. I have to be cool with that. I have to be like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do 30 minutes and we're going to get to this. And then we're going to, I can stand in front of an audience of 10,000 people and not even blink. But there are a lot of people who can't sit, have this conversation. So I totally have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, one of the things I admire so much about your work in terms of us being a supervisor is, and one of the things that I'm curious about how to sort of reconcile for myself is how much you care about your supervisees. Now, let me clarify. I care very much about my supervisees as well, care very much about my staff, my team, the people that I work with. I care very much. I also know that there's a point where you care so much and things don't go well, or don't go right, maybe, or you get, hurt. And I guess from your grief perspective, maybe that would be helpful for me, but I want to know how to care as much as you do and not be afraid of caring as much as you do. Do you get kind of what I'm asking?
Yeah. And I do get scared of caring.
Because sometimes I'll say, if you ask me about something, I'll be like, yeah, I hate people. I don't even care. I don't, but I do. I really do. But it's easier for me to just say, no, I hate them all, because it's easier just to not like them and to pretend like I don't care than to really care.
Well, I mean, I spent too many years, much, 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 much earlier in my life, pretending like I didn't care. And that really didn't work.
It doesn't really feel good because it's very anti-me. It's not, yeah.
That just didn't work.
Walking around like with this I don't care attitude feels really icky.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't work anyway because we really can't fool ourselves.
Well, it shows too, doesn't it? I mean, that your energy is going to show. Yeah.
So, I think that it's just a matter of it's the investment in the relationship. And I've had some of my staff who have kind of gone, you don't read my notes right away. And so I'm not sure if you care. I was like, oh my gosh, that has nothing to do with it. It's because I get overwhelmed and I'm in this and I'm this.
Just to clarify.
Holy moly. But that conversation that happened years ago, that really helped me to go, oh, wow, you take a look at how are they interpreting what I'm doing or not doing.
Well, like you were saying about exceptional supervisors, one of the things I heard you say was, being able to have absolutely clear and also candid, conversations that have some candor, that are like, hey, look, this is the reality. Here's where we are. I'm still with you. It's all, we're going to work it through. So that sounds like part of your strategy.
Yeah. I hope so. And, I've had associates, a couple associates over the last, 20, 30 years, who it's not a good fit. And we've had to have, those frank conversations of, do you, is this a good fit for you? Because often it'll come out of, their own fears that come out and, or mine too. So really take a look at the relationship. I'm also much pickier about associates that I ask to come in. That it's not just, hi, you want to work for me? Okay. I'm much more attuned to who I think would be a good fit or not.
Yeah, that's a really critical element.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like you were saying, in your hospital experience, there were people there that didn't have a choice. And that supervisor that they were unhappy with maybe was also unhappy with the fact that, they had this responsibility, and that's why it was a no-go. I do think that is something that as a profession, we have a responsibility to pay more attention to. It's the idea of fit. And that just because you have to supervise someone doesn't mean that is the person for you. And how can we build a system that supports, community services boards and hospitals and places that, there are supervisors where the fit might not work. How can we support them on the outside and say, hey, look, we'll push in and give you some extra support. We'll do some extraneous supervision or whatever. Like, how can we as a profession think about that for the purposes of fit, not to take over anyone's role or step on anyone's toes, but expansion of the profession requires supervisors to make themselves present and known in the community. Like, hey, I'm doing this. I'm out here. We just spend so much time and energy in this field gatekeeping, and I just don't get it anymore. And it sounds like one of the things that you're doing, especially like in your building and with these 5 people, with the webinars you're spreading, that you're really opening up the windows and doors too, which I think is so much a part of like this generativity phase of what I'm feeling in terms of my work. But is that what you're feeling too?
Absolutely. Yeah. I know Michelle and I started talking because Michelle said, hey, I think I'm going to take on I think I'm going to start supervising. What do you think? I was like, oh my gosh, do it.
And call Amy Parks.
Do it. Yeah, that's right. And, and that, it helps us meet our costs. Do we make a whole lot of money on it? No. Do I lose money on it sometimes? Yeah, sometimes. But it more than then makes up for it. It motivates me. It tells me, it informs me of how to show up. And I think that I show up better when I know that I've got, got people to answer to and that they're actually watching what I do.
Absolutely. And I mean, and to clarify, you're not doing it for free. I mean, they're obviously in your practice. They're working and supporting you in your practice. And, all that's important. And, at the same time, too, you are, when you give, you're giving from your heart. And sometimes that means you're sacrificing some financial gain. And they are too, but this is all part of the profession. And the bigger part of that is, again, no one's asking anyone to do anything for free. No one's asking anyone to deathly sacrifice. But again, the more we are present and the more we're doing this and the more different ways of and modalities to make it, frankly, easier and approachable, more practical. See 5 people instead of 1. That's 2 hours of your time versus 5. Which serves their licensure needs. It helps them build community as well, practice how to network, all the reasons. It's such a powerful experience for them.
I know for me, I get to teach them how to do private practice. And so we make sure that, I don't set fees for them. They do their own fee setting, although, we have prices on the website of here's what we think that fee needs to be for their level of experience. And that they also, that the client gets that person as well as the supervisor's experience and expertise
right
as well. But they, my, one of the things that I talk about at Pepperdine is, you can make a good living being in private practice. Okay. And we want to be able to help support that.
Yep. There are a lot of really great ways to be in this field, to make a good living, to be mentally sound, to have a good work-life balance. And, working with somebody with 32 years of experience like you is obviously part of the secret. And so anyone would absolutely be so lucky to be working with you and or with Mark. Let's shout out Mark while he's doing the grilling. Anyone that could be working with you would be absolutely so lucky. And so it sounds like they're doing some great things and you're doing some great things out there in California. So we're so excited. Thank you so much, Debi, for your time today. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I really want to thank you for all your work that you do with clinical supervision directory.
Thank you.
Of really highlighting the work for clinicians and for supervisors and for supervisees, is having a place where a supervisor can go and see, hey, I'm looking for supervision. I love all the ways that you support and that you support the whole community.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, we want to do more for supervisees as well and give them some more resources and continue to grow. This is a mutual admiration society. You and Mark are my first fans, and I just couldn't be more grateful for that. So that's really powerful, for me too. So again, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you everyone for tuning into this episode of Supervision Simplified. Remember, we talk about that the supervision revolution starts here, and we hope you'll subscribe to Supervision Simplified and that you'll share it with your friends and your colleagues. We also want your comments, stories, and feedback, ideas that you have for group activities. Both Debi and I want to share those so we can all be sure to be talking about what interests you the most. Until next time, keep on simplifying and elevating your supervision game.